It's currently a Friday right now. And if you clicked on this video, chances are you are feeling some type of way. You are feeling some type of way about your low back. And so I've been meaning to make this video for a while because this is honestly the canon to why I started all of this in the first place. And it's funny because I've put this off for so long, but it's so central to what I'm doing and what I'm trying to do in the future. And to lay that groundwork is very important. And so, you know, this is going to be kind of casual. This is just going to be me talking to you. I don't have all the answers. I want to say that first and foremost. I'm not a doctor. I'm not five certifications, all these higher accredited educational certificates. But what I do have is my story, and I hope to share and shed some insight that can help you going through your own low back pain journey. And so I want to start this off. I wrote down a few notes, right? Got to come prepared in some sense of just the problem here. And so I think we can all agree the problem that we are facing is chronic low back pain. You have tried everything under the sun. You've probably tried the anti-inflammatories. You've tried the physical therapy. You've tried the top 5 exercises and stretches to instantly relieve your low back. You've tried it all, and you have been disenfranchised, and you've been lied to, and people have written you off and have put you down as a number, pretty much, or just a simple diagnosis, and nobody seems to care. Uh, but I do. That's why I'm making this. I'm making this for the past version of me, which is you. And the problem here is that we have been dealing with this for so long. You have. And like I said previously, we've tried all these things, nothing has worked. So we need a different solution. We need a different way to solve our problem. It's might be something that we have to go and find, or it might be right in front of your face that you've just been missing. My journey, so a little bit about me, my journey with my low back started 3 years ago. I was always an athlete my whole life, and I think it's very important to define the types of people that deal with this injury. I'm not saying that there's a certain archetype of person, but what I am saying is that success and defeat leaves clues, okay? When you're dealing with this, these things develop over time. It's taken a long time for you to get to where you are. There might have been a set injury, but the damage and the load that has gone into that one point in time was a lot. And so I'm saying this to say background here and context is important. I was always an athlete. I always pushed myself super hard. I didn't always have the best habits, right? I would not eat the best. I would not put things into my body that were conducive to health. I struggled with vaping for a long time. Still struggle with nicotine. Zins are something I still kind of dabble in. We'll touch on that here in a second. But yeah, growing up, I was always also super inflamed. Like I went through the whole Accutane journey. I had terrible acne, terrible gut issues. I was always in that constant fight or flight response, it seems like, looking back on it and reflecting. We're going to touch on that too here in a moment of why I think that's important. And yeah, I grew up playing football, playing a lot of different types of sports, ultimately specialized in football. Played D3 Division 3 football at a small school, and it was my freshman year where it was just a non-contact injury. I was just in a 7-on-7, and if you don't know what that is, just a non-contact, kind of like football without the tackling and stuff. Made a weird move and felt something weird in my back on my right side. Continued to play on it, continued to lift, and that developed into what was my last snap of football ever, which was something really lame, honestly. It was like a punt return, and I told coach I couldn't go back in because I couldn't lift up my right leg because of the stabbing pain. And that was the last snap I ever played of football. And it's not really dramatic, but it was at the time for me. But yeah, like that sucked. And so it was a 3-year cycle. I'm kind of condensing a lot of this, but it was a 3-year cycle of me just right. You're going through like the flow chart, like the decision tree that the mainstream medical system puts you through, which is You go through, you receive some anti-inflammatories, right? We're treating the symptom. We're treating the symptom. And then we go into physical therapy, where we do some generic stretches, some generic exercises. And we go into, okay, I had a lidocaine injection in my right SI joint. Maybe that was it. MRI. Okay, what did the MRI show? Oh, well, it came back disc bulging, stenosis, pars defects, which is pretty much a stress fracture. I had that, and it developed into both sides of my L3, or excuse me, L4, L5. It was just bilateral pars defect, stress fractures of those facet joints. You know, cool, awesome. Um, and it was one of those things where I struggled so much with finding answers. It seemed like nobody took the time to really explain to me what my injury was and how to really understand and conceptualize this, and to take the time to really walk me through the process of how to get back. When you're watching this, you might be struggling with a disc herniation, or whatever it might be, nerve pain. All those just different things, but the main root cause, which we'll get into, is going to be the same. I'm going to give you a system here to help you solve your own low back pain. And so yeah, that was my background. That was, I after that last injection, I stayed on the team for another year. And then I ultimately quit football, which started my just hunger for knowledge on how to fix this thing. And I was not perfect. I let my ego really get in the way of my recovery process. And I guess now we're going to transition a little bit into things that made my journey longer than it had to be. First and foremost is the ego of hurry, of, if you ever read The Inner Game of Tennis, that self one, of the cerebral, the mental up here, that guy, that voice telling you that you need to do more, or you need to look a certain way. There's someone out there online who is doing a hybrid high rocks. You need to train like this. You're missing out. You're behind on something, on life. That ego kept me in a cycle, right, of constant re-injury. And the minute that I felt good, oh, boom, let's go make a video. Let's go post it. Let's go do a workout that's really hard and taxing, because I want to feel good about myself, about my body. But I never actually took the time to listen and to quiet the noise, the internal noise. We'll talk about that here soon. I have a lot of things to talk about. Hopefully, we can get through this without my iPhone running out of storage. But that was, where was I? That was what caused me to have a longer recovery than it needed to be. And I brought all of these books here. If you ever heard of Stuart McGill, that's who I originally found to help deal with this problem. He's kind of like the, I don't know, one of the, like the founding fathers of like low back pain disorders and fitness. But I bought all of his books. Run out of storage, unfortunately. But I will pick up where I left off. I bought all of his books. I have all this stuff, and I read a ton of different sources, and I took a lot of inspiration whenever I was on this low back journey. Uh, took bits and pieces from a lot of different people. Brendan, low back ability, took a lot from him as well. And so, what I want to do here is give you a building block. Like, I want to show you, just point you to the direction of the well. Here it is. Go and fill up your cup. This is what worked for me. Um, Side note, like just personal story here, personal transparency. I've been at times during a flare up where I've been rolling around my bed crying, asking God why. And if you're faith based, it's okay to wrestle with God, but you need to have that faith. You need to have that faith in Jesus. You need to have that as your anchor. I'm hesitant to even say, like, if you're not, go find something else, because He's the way, the truth, the life. Uh, that is who got me through the lowest of the lows. You need something that's greater than yourself. You need to know that there is a God that you serve who is very familiar with suffering, with hardships. And so I've been there. I've also taken actions of faith. For example, after a flare up in the midst of one, I was on the couch. I remember this, and it was just been so pent up. And I just started sobbing and asking God why. Like, please take this away from me. Take this away from me. Take this away from me. And after that, after I was done crying, I signed up for the boxing gym that I went to. Um, and I just made that as an act of faith, as a bold act of I'm going to show up, I'm going to do the thing, and to say that I haven't thought about quitting, I have. But I remember going to the doctors, and this is kind of going back to the power of belief, where he basically told me after looking at the X-rays and looking at my MRIs that your spine's stable. So with my pars defect, there was no slippage. You have all these, disc bulge, stenosis, but you're fine. You can go and do these things. You can go and lift and box, but you'll just experience increased symptoms. And what that did to me is one, it there was an authority that told me that I was safe. And I hate that I needed that, but I did. And two, it didn't give the pain the power anymore. So at first I started to use the pain as an authority and not as a guide. So what that means is every time that I would experience a flare up, I would use that as that's who I am, not as a okay, maybe I need to recognize some limitations on my body. Let's make sure that we do this the smart way, and let's take some uh, necessary steps to make sure that maybe the symptoms don't flare up as much. Going into actual exercises and things that helped, the first place that I started with was here with the low back, the mechanic, and I think you see all these things. You see the GOTA, you see the functional patterns, you see all these different methods of training. And one thing that I will say is that your spine, so going back to that oak tree and the willow branch, I don't know if that part was cut out or not, but there's two different types, right? We had the oak tree, very rigid but stiff, strong but stiff. The willow tree, very slender but maybe not as strong. We have a certain amount of capacity, right? It's all load management. So if I'm going to go pick up something, this puts more stress on my back than this right here, right? The proper hip hinge. And I'm not telling you to be neurotic about your movement patterns. What I am saying is, I think the first step is to maybe recognize what those movement patterns that you might be struggling with are. If you really struggle at hip hinging, or if you really struggle with a certain foundational movement, a lunge, squat, hinge has been the one that I've seen the most problems with. It's worth auditing that because I'm not saying that some things, the human body is very adaptable. You can adapt with, feet that are pointed outwards, or you can adapt to different things, but you're not doing yourself any favors. That's what I'm trying to say. So, auditing where your weaknesses are, right? If you're the oak tree, you probably need to work on your flexibility. If you're the willow tree, you probably need to work on your strength a little bit more. And so, first step is identifying those movement patterns in your areas of weakness. I think everyone intuitively knows this to some degree. You just have to really sit back and reflect on the type of body type that you are. Secondly, like actual actionable action actual actionable advice here. Exercises that really helped me foundations. One is isometric holds. So in the big three here, in the McGill big three, we do a lot of core isometrics, and I'll put links to the videos and the resources of what the big three are. But isometrics like a lunge position that not only lengthens that hip flexor, but you're also here strengthening your hips and your legs. Push up isometrics, leg raise isometrics. These all teach your body an important lesson, which is that you need to be able to learn to try hard. What do I mean by that? The low back is such a unique injury where it affects every part of your life. You lose the ability to try hard things. You associate effort with pain, and then that downward negative feedback loop starts to happen. You start to do less and less, and then your fitness becomes worse and worse, and then you're more sensitive and more sensitive to the point where just lying in your bed, the littlest of movements, you're so sensitive, hypersensitive to the pain, and you're so unfit because you haven't been moving your body that that's where you are. That's you're watching this video. So you have to do something that you can try hard with that's safe. And isometrics are a great way to do that. No matter if you have pain or not. Just because you have pain, look at me. Hear me when I say this. This is coming from love. I love you. Okay? Love. You might have pain, but just because you have pain, that does not mean that you're not getting better. So you might have pain, but you are getting better even though you have that. Stop associating pain with lack of progress. That's not break that loop. Break it right now. Just because you feel sore doesn't mean that you're reducing progress. If anything, your neurological and your psychological well-being has been warped so much by this chronic pain that I would place less and less of an emphasis on actually how you feel. I know that might sound bold, but I think that it's true because your brain has become so sensitive now to the injuries that you've been putting on it or the sensations that, right, if we keep on picking the scab, it's going to get more and more sensitive. So, like I said, pain does not equal lack of progress or a reversal of progress. That's why going back to actionable advice, isometrics, and on top of that, walking, some sort of cardiovascular activity, whether it is biking, whether it is walking, okay? You need to get blood flow in your body. You cannot be stagnant. Start with 10-minute walks. Start with a 10-second isometric hold, right? Directly on the low back, a low back extension hold, because going back to that, fear is in your brain. It's a lie. The only way that you can attack it at the root source is to directly train it. Not because that might be the best exercise, but it is the best proof to your brain and your body that you can handle those things. Because as of right now, your mind and your body says we can't handle supporting our low back. We can't use these muscles. That's why we're constantly guarding it. That's why we constantly stiff and move because we don't feel safe enough for us to relax yet. Another thing that isometrics do is they help you clear out the internal noise. And what I mean by that is that we have noise outside of us, and then once we're still, we are sensitive now to the noise inside of us. As we're doing the isometrics, what I like to do is really feel intensely how I am feeling in that moment. What is my body telling me? What am I experiencing? And going to that place in your mind when it gets hard and really pushing yourself, you start to form new neural connections. It's been scientifically proven with isometrics. How do you put this all into a plan? I want to make sure I'm still rolling here. Yep. So putting this all into a plan. So we went over, okay, one thing I also want to touch on too is just flexibility, owning end ranges. Yes, I'm going to tell you this because it needs to be said. If you can't access a deep range of motion, if your body is super stiff, I don't know if this part got cut out, but the iceberg analogy. So going back to growing up, I was always inflamed in that fight or flight. If you're constantly in a sympathetic state right now, you need to unguard your nervous system. And what that looks like is getting into a parasympathetic state, going back to being faith-based. That's the root of it, right? Of not being in a hurry. Because the hurry and the ego and the self one, they all want this to be fixed ASAP. They all want a quick fix. And that's only just leading to prolonged suffering. You have to let go of the expectation and the amount of progress that you think you deserve. Breath work, praying, being intentional, and just sitting and being bored, not being in a hurry. These all sound so simple and basic until you actually put it into practice of deregulating that nervous system. So that's first on the list. You got to deregulate. Secondly, try hard. That goes back to the isometrics. And as you do these things, it's really simple of just you need to own those deep ranges of motion. So like with your hips, with the split squat, extreme split squat holds, you have to make the little easy things hard. Okay. Going back to the oak and the willow, I keep saying going back, but if you're really strong, but you're inflexible, you need to work on that. If you're super flexible, but you don't have a lot of strength in those end ranges, you need to work on that. Identifying your weaknesses is going to be the first step. And once you have identified those, creating a game plan on pen and paper that you will adhere to is going to be vital. Make it as simple as possible. So what I did, I used to follow the low back ability. I used to follow his plan, but a common thing that I did was I tried to kill two birds with one stone. I tried to rehab while also doing lifting, while also sprinting, and you can't. You have to make this thing the main thing. If you really want to conquer this, this next season of your life needs to be dedicated as far as health and fitness goes into solving this. And so what we're going to do is we're going to work on the things that support the low back. So that's going to be everything from our lower ankles and our calves and our legs to working further up into our hips, working above the low back, which is our upper back, our trap three muscles, our shoulders. And it's all just bringing blood flow back into our body. That combined with a walking schedule of just 10 minutes of walking a day, 20 minutes, going without your phone, getting your cardiovascular fitness up, getting blood flow into your body. That's going to be the main thing. And then last but not least, directly training your core. I say core as in the totality of your front, side, and the back of your core. Okay. Things for the front of the core. Okay. I will put links and I also put up here things like a gar hammer raise, um, incline bench reverse crunches, or we go into the isometrics. So first, on any stage of this, you're going to see how I like to think of it as we first just hold isometrically, graded exposure there. Then we add movement. Then we add load. Hold, movement, load with movement. Okay. That's how it's going to go. So, for instance, front of your core, you might have a modified curl up. Once you're good at holding that isometric, then you can go into maybe some gar hammer or leg raises. Then you can go into maybe some weighted reverse squats. Side of the core, your QL muscles, your obliques, working a side bridge hold, a modified side bridge even. Going into then maybe a QL raise, loaded QL raise. See, now we're adding load and owning those end ranges of motion. Back of your core, back extensors. You get a lot of this while we're squatting or we're doing any sort of heavy lifting on our back. But now that we're not doing that, we need to still do it in a safe manner, which is why we're going to do things like a low back hold or a bird dog to start. So a bird dog isometric. Then we're going into a low back hold. Then we're going into actual reps where we're decompressing and compressing the spine. All of that is following the same isometric hold, movement, loaded with movement. And these are just guidelines too. This is a process. Just because you do something doesn't mean that you're fixed. It's the process of doing the work that is where the magic happens. One thing that also helped me too was strengthening my glutes, my glute medius, and restoring that foot to glute connection almost. When I sit, I'm really bad whenever I sit. Stuff just goes offline for me, right? Like I lose connection with my glutes. So a lot of like taking my glutes and my hips through a full end range, like a hip airplane. Great exercise that I use a lot. Pigeon pulses, strength through the end range, glute bridges, Copenhagen squat, or excuse me, Copenhagen planks. That works the inside, right? That works your groin muscles. Come on, your adductors. Strengthening this area right here had the highest return on my investment, but it's all in the load and the dosage. What can be the cure can also be the poison. It all depends on the dosage. And so you need to start small and humble, and you have to take this thing in weeks and months. You have to be fully present in each exercise, but then at the end of the day, take a long-term view on your progress. And then just other best practices, nicotine, caffeine, all stimulants that narrow blood vessels and decrease blood flow. I'm not saying that you have to quit. I'm saying you got to be aware. That stuff is not helping you. Smoking is not helping you. Zins are not helping you. Anything that's not conducive to your low back journey will not help you. So you need to have faith. Do not be fearful of movement. I want to tell you this now. Movement, I am a movement optimist. Do not be afraid of a certain movement. There are no bad movements. It's just your ability level. That's it. That is it. Pain is not the authority. It's just the guide. That's all it is. And just because you feel pain doesn't mean you're not getting better. I said a lot there. Hopefully this reaches the right person. If you're watching this, hang in there. Have faith. Take it one day at a time. Peace.